Hello, my name is Joe, and this is a preamble to the video. I want to know, I just wanted to get this in here quick. Please let me know in the comments if you've read this author that I'm going to talk about, Abraham Merritt, and please let me know what you think about him. Another question I have for you, let me know if you have an author that frustrates you, that you find tedious, that you can just, when you read their work, there's problems here. Let me know if you have an author like that, and yet you're fascinated by them and you keep going back to them. That basically describes, I think, Abraham Merritt. Anyway, let's continue on with the video. Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel, Joe's Book and Movie Corner. Today I have my third episode in a series that I'm doing, My Odyssey through science fiction. And what I'm doing is I'm just documenting my journey as I explore the science fiction genre. I have a huge TBR ranging from all different eras, the pulp era all the way up, through the golden age, up until cyberpunk. So I have a lot of science fiction that I want to read, and I'm just kind of picking books just at random through the decade, and I want to just record my thoughts on them. So today I want to talk about The Metal Monster by A. Merritt. Abraham Merritt first wrote this it was first serialized in 1920 for a magazine called Argosy All-Story Weekly. I'd never heard of it before. And then it was later published as a novel in 1941. And this is a sequel to his first novel, The Moon Pool. Most of these books are starring the same lead character, Dr. Goodwin. I read The Moon Pool earlier this year. And I liked The Moon Pool, but I had some problems with it. And I have the same problems here with The Metal Monster. And I'll get into that as I start talking about it. But The Moon Pool, just to recap what that one is about, it is essentially a subterranean lost civilization story. It's a fantasy novel with heavy science fiction elements. The Metal Monster also starts out as a lost civilization story, but then it turns, I think, much more firmly into science fiction. I think this is a flat-out science fiction story. And I just want to read a quote that I found really interesting. You can find this just on the Metal Monster Wikipedia page. This is a quote from Abraham Merritt's friend H.P. Lovecraft. He said, "Other recent items on my calendar are A. Merritt's old yarn, The Metal Monster, which I had never read before because Eddie, I guess a friend of his, told me it was dull. The damned fool. Actually, the book contains the most remarkable presentation of the utterly alien and non-human that I have ever seen. I don't wonder that Merritt calls it his best and worst production. The human characters are commonplace and wooden. Just pulp hokum. But the scenes and phenomena, oh boy." And I would agree with that. Overall, the characters, very, very wooden. I had the same problem with the Moon Pool. I think it's even worse here in The Metal Monster. But the scenes and phenomena, he really likes. Now, I like them too, but I have some problems, and it has to deal with Abraham Merritt's wordiness and his prose. But anyway, let's back up a little bit and kind of describe what's happening in this book. So once again, the same main character, Dr. Goodwin, from the Moon Pool. He's now in the Himalayas, and he meets up with some friends that he just happens to know people that he sees in the Himalayas. And they get together, and they're gonna, adventure around the Himalayas together, and they end up being chased by what apparently is a group of descendants from the Persian Empire. There's this lost civilization. These Persians were driven to the Himalayas by Alexander the Great, and they've just been living cut off from the rest of the world for millennia. And as they're running away from these Persians, they encounter this big, weird metal monster, and it's not just one metal monster, but it's actually several smaller metal monsters as well. And then it's this whole race of metal people. And then they're joined by this beautiful woman. I mean, this is also an adventure story at its core, so of course there's this beautiful woman. And even though she's human, she's really more one of this weird metal race of people. So there's the big metal monster, and then so the smaller metal people are the big metal monster. It's kind of shape shifting, and it's got these weird metal tentacles. And then the smaller versions of these metal people, there's like floating cubes and pyramids and spheres. They follow these metal people. The woman, the mysterious, beautiful woman, brings them into like this big metal city, and it's all this. It's described as this one living hive mind, and then it's always kind of shape shifting, and it's kind of cut off in this valley in the Himalayas. Really, really imaginative stuff, and really just out there and bizarre. And then so there is conflict in the book. What are some areas of conflict? There's one woman in Goodwin's group, Ruth, and this mysterious this woman who's basically, you can tell she's been brought into the Metal People Society, and she's kind of a part of their hive mind. And then she's trying to bring in Ruth, kind of, and get her to join the Metal People and kind of take her over and like assimilate her. I'm using that word intentionally. There's also, eventually, we're going to see the Persians show up again, and there's going to be conflict between the two people. And also, and this is something that isn't like really revealed until the very end, there's conflict within this metal hive mind itself. So yeah, it's all very imaginative, very, very interesting. There's, I think the most interesting aspect of this is this alien metal hive mind. Minor spoilers here, but this thing is not from the Earth. It is from somewhere else in the galaxy. And when one of the characters who's had like visions of where this race of metal people have come from, it's very cool. It's very reminiscent of, if you've seen Star Trek the Motion Picture, when Spock is traveling in his spacesuit through V'ger, and he learns kind of a little bit more of the nature of V'ger and where V'ger came from. It's very similar to that. And also, just going with the Star Trek connection, I mentioned assimilate. And this is also, I mean, like V'ger is very similar to this. Reminds me very much of the Borg, especially the earlier episodes in Star Trek The Next Generation with the Borg. I mean, there's in an early episode of TNG, you see a Borg ship can like repair itself, and they really stuck with that hive mind aspect of the Borg that they slowly have started to kind of let go of as the years have gone on in Star Trek. And another thing that this reminded me of a little bit, there is a threat to mankind. These metal people, like, eventually will they take over the Earth? And that reminded me of the Thing alien from the John Campbell story, Who Goes There, made famously into 3 movie adaptations. Now, a lot of the conflict in this book is unfortunately very short-lived, and now we're going to get into my problem. I mean, the first problem is, like H.P. Lovecraft says, the characters are wooden, and I accept that. I'm fine with that. I don't really mind that much. It's interesting. Dr. Goodwin, in the Moon Pool, he felt like an observer. He felt like he's just the guy here to tell us the story that is not really participating in the events of the Moon Pool. I mean, he is, but he feels very much like an observer, but it doesn't feel like his story. He has a lot more to do here in The Metal Monster, and I appreciate that. But he's still an observer. There's a very thin romantic story going on here. It's very, very, very thin. And Goodwin is still not an active participant. I'd like the hero of the novel to actually kind of be the hero. So yeah, overall characters are thin, but I can move past that. The one problem, though, it has to do with the prose and the writing style. I mean, there's a lot of imaginative stuff in here, but it just goes on for way too long, and Merritt just goes on and on with his descriptions. I mean, there's chapter upon chapter of characters going through this metal city and describing it, and they're seeing all these amazing sights, but after a while, it's so weird and out there and and unlike anything you're going to see in your day-to-day life that you just get kind of lost in the descriptions, and you end up zoning out for a long time. I mean, there will be like pages where I'm like, you know what, I've been zoned out for pages here, but the problem is, since the descriptions go on for so long, I know that I haven't really missed much. I haven't missed anything important. When the conflict does come, I mean, one big relief for me, this book does get tedious. And then one big relief was when the Persians finally came back. And it's like, all right, finally something's happening. There's some conflict. And it's really good, but it's so short-lived. I mean, the Persians, they come, and the problem that they present is like solved immediately. And it's like, oh, well, I could have used more with that, and and take all those chapters describing the Metal City. You could have condensed all that. It's like, after a while, I get it. It's weird. You don't need to keep going on and on with the weirdness, because it's ultimately, it loses its effect if you just go on and on with these never-ending descriptions. But maybe it's the kind of thing, I guess, that H.P. Lovecraft really liked. So, despite the fact that I had a problem with this book, and this one, I think overall I found even more tedious than the Moonpool. The Moonpool was also kind of tedious, but I really liked the Moonpool. I liked it a lot. I struggled with this one a little bit. I almost DNF'd it about halfway through, but I'm glad that I didn't. A question that I have for you watching this is, one, if you've read Abraham Merritt, I would love to know what you think about him. Please let me know in the comments what you think about Abraham Merritt. And also, even though I've read 2 novels by him, both have been frustrating but interesting experiences. Why do I want to keep reading Abraham Merritt? Why am I so fascinated to keep going with him? I want to keep reading his books. The next one is The Ship of Ishtar. I've heard good things about that from people that like Abraham Merritt. But yeah, what is it about this author? And so I want to know in the comments, do you have authors that are like this? You find their work frustrating, and yet you can point out there's identifiable flaws, and yet you want to keep going back to their books. You like the author. You're fascinated by the author. Please let me know in the comments if you have someone that's like that, an author that, though they're flawed, you just want to keep going back to them. So I've only read 2 of Abraham Merritt's books, and I want to just keep going with him at some point. So yeah, I'm glad I read it. It was tedious, and this is a book that I have friends in my real life who I'm always kind of recommending science fiction and fantasy to. I would not recommend this author to very many people. I mean, only if you really like kind of pulp fantasy and pulp science fiction and pulp horror would I recommend Abraham Merritt to you. So, but I'm glad I read it, and I'm looking forward to reading The Ship of Ishtar at some point. But that's all for now. Thank you.